So I'm going to show you how to stitch our Jubilee kit, and we'll go right from the beginning. So get your fabric into your hoop by placing the larger hoop over the centre of the design, try and get it central, and then pushing that over the smaller hoop. That's not very central, so just play around with it until you're happy that it's in a kind of central position. And then tighten up the screw as much as you can, and then you tug away just gently at the sides to get the fabric as tight as you can in the hoop. So just keep tightening the screw and tugging the fabric. So we're going to start with the laurel wreath and these numbers and this little ribbon banner over here. So this is all stitched with back stitch, and we're using 2 strands of thread. So I've threaded my needle with 2 strands of thread, tied a knot in the end, and I've got a little 10cm tail on at the end of my needle. So back stitch is really easy. We're just going to follow the printed design, and you come up through your fabric, down again as long as you want your stitch to be. I always say about 2 to 3 millimeters. If you keep them nice and small, you can get some nice definition around the curves and the shape of the design. So then I'll come up again 2 or 3 millimeters away, and I'll go back down that first stitch, so back down the end of that first stitch. So we're kind of joining up our stitches by going back down the hole that the last one came up, and just follow the printed design. And that is the way you're going to stitch all of these leaves and these numbers and the platinum jubilee as well. We'll also stitch the outline of the crown in back stitch. If you want to do all your back stitch first, then those are the bits that are stitched in back stitch. So that's the first part. So now we'll go on to look at the letters and how we stitch those in split back stitch, which is very similar. It just gives you a bit of a thicker line, so I'll show you that now. I've just realised I haven't actually told you in the instructions that these 2 letters, the E and the R, are stitched with a split back stitch. So sorry about that, but hopefully you'll be okay because you're watching this. So split back stitch, I've got 3 strands of thread on my needle. Now I've just done an ordinary stitch there because I'm going around a corner, and that's one of the things to note with split back stitch is when you go around a corner you need to just do a normal back stitch, because you can't split the stitch when you're going around a corner, a sharp corner. But on this, my second stitch, I'm going to, instead of going back down here, which is the end of the last stitch, I'm going to go down the middle of the last stitch, hence the name split back stitch. And so I'm just going to outline this E with split back stitch, and then I'm going to go back round and fill in the gaps. So that was a normal back stitch because I was going around a corner, but this is a split back stitch. And then I'm just going to go down the whole row of the E so you can see that we're doing a little stitch, 2 or 3 millimeters, and then back down the middle of that previous stitch. So it just gives you a thicker line and lets you fill kind of bigger spaces like these letters. Just do a final stitch here. And then because I'm going around a corner, I'm going to do a normal back stitch, which means I'm going in at the end of the last stitch rather than the middle. And then carry on doing my split. So we're going to fill the whole of this E with this stitch. So we're just going to keep going round, filling in. I'll do an outline and then I'll go round and I'll just fill in the letters. So that's how you use the split back stitch on this part of the pattern. So we're going to go back to back stitch. So we're doing the outline of the crown in back stitch. So wherever you can see a line on the crown, we're going to stitch that in 2 strands of black thread, and then we'll go back and we'll fill it with split back stitch as a fill stitch. So first of all, we need to outline the crown shape with back stitch. So now we've done that back stitch around that section, I'll just show you how I'm filling in. So I'll show you how I've done it here. I've gone around these little black marks. I think there were 4 printed on your fabric, but I've just done 3 just to keep it simple. And then I've just started around the edge with my split back stitch and worked my way in a kind of spiral, and then just gone in the kind of little nooks and crannies with my stitches. So that's the kind of technique, but I'll just show you that split back stitch again. So I'm starting around the edge, and I'm just going to come back and split my last stitch all the way around the edge and just work my way in to the point where I get to the little spaces in between the black marks, and I just fill them in. You're just aiming to fill this block of this shape with your stitches, so just keep them quite small so that you can go around the corners nicely and fill in all the little edges and the little nooks and crannies nicely. So keep them about 2 to 3 millimeters long if you can. And you'll use the same technique to fill the rest of the crown, but I did a kind of a spiral here, but along here where the jewels are, I just went along and then kind of left a gap for the jewel and just kept going forwards and backwards horizontally. And I did the same here with the pink. This pink would be a bit fiddly to kind of do the spiral, and then just fill in. This is kind of 3 lines of split back stitch just next to each other, and then we're going to fill in these jewels and these little bits of the crown with just a little bit of satin stitch. So I'm going to show you how to do that now. So satin stitch is just horizontal or vertical depending on the shape and the position of the area you want to stitch, but we're just going to go horizontally on this one and just go side to side, stitches just next to each other, so you build up this lovely kind of satin feel to this area of stitching. You will have outlined this in back stitch, but I'm just showing you without that how to do the stitch. So just stitches next to each other. I've pulled a bit of thread through, ignore that. Just do those little stitches next to each other in all of the little jewel shapes. So your kit will end up looking like this when you're finished. So just filling that crown out and then doing the satin stitch for all the jewels. So I hope you enjoy it, or you've enjoyed creating it.